6 months later, Jake Morrison stood in a garden on Terra Station, watching Vex tend to small green plants. The alien's 4 hands moved with surprising gentleness, checking soil moisture and adjusting plant supports. It had been a difficult 6 months. The military tribunals, the endless questioning, the suspicion from his own people. Some called Jake a hero for bringing back valuable intelligence from an enemy warrior. Others called him a traitor for harboring an alien. Lisa Wong was fully recovered now and back on active duty. She visited the station regularly and helped translate when Vex struggled with complex human concepts. Her language skills had improved dramatically through constant practice with their alien friend. "The tomatoes are growing well," Jake said, as he joined Vex in the garden. Vex made happy musical sounds. It had taken to human gardening with enthusiasm that surprised everyone. The alien found peace in nurturing growing things after years of being forced to destroy. "Growth brings joy," Vex said in careful English. Its accent was strange but understandable now. Jake smiled. Vex was learning human languages faster than most experts thought possible. But more than words, it was learning human concepts. Friendship. Trust. The idea that former enemies could become family. A group of children from the station's civilian quarter came running over. They weren't afraid of Vex anymore. The alien had become their favorite teacher, showing them how to grow plants and telling them stories about distant worlds. "Teacher Vex," called 8-year-old Amy Peterson. "Can you tell us about the singing crystals again?" Vex's blue lights brightened with pleasure. It loved these teaching moments. "The crystals grow in deep caves on my world. They make music when the wind blows through them." The children gathered around as Vex demonstrated, making the harmonic sounds that passed for Zephyrian singing. The alien had a gift for making alien concepts understandable to young minds. Jake watched with satisfaction. This was what Vex was meant to be, not a warrior, but a teacher and protector of the young. Dr. Phillips approached from the medical center. She had been studying Zephyrian biology with Vex's help. "Jake, we just got the communication from Earth Command. The peace talks are moving forward." Jake felt a surge of hope. For months, Vex had been working with human diplomats, explaining Zephyrian culture and suggesting ways the two species might find common ground. "What did they say?" Jake asked. "The Zephyrian Council wants to send a delegation. They specifically requested that Vex be part of the human negotiating team." Vex looked up from the plants, its lights pulsing with complex emotions. Going back to face its own people would be difficult. Many would still see it as a traitor, despite the cover story, of capture and forced cooperation, but Vex had grown during its time with humans. It was no longer the confused warrior who had cried for mercy in a dark cave. Now it knew what it wanted to fight for: peace, understanding, the right of young ones from both species to grow up without war. "Will you do it?" Jake asked. Vex stood, slowly, soil still clinging to its hands. "Yes, but I am afraid." "We'll be with you," Jake said. "Lisa and I are part of the negotiating team, too." Vex's lights brightened. Having friends beside it made the prospect less frightening. Over the next few weeks, they prepared for the peace talks. Vex worked with human scholars to create the first real Zephyrian-to-human dictionary. It explained cultural concepts that had been misunderstood for years. Jake learned that what humans saw as Zephyrian aggression was often defensive behavior. The aliens had been expanding across the galaxy not for conquest, but because their homeworld was dying. They needed new places for their people to live. Why didn't you just ask for help? Lisa wondered during one of their planning sessions. Vex made sad sounds. Warriors are taught that asking for help is weakness, that taking by force shows strength. But I have learned this is wrong. The peace talks were held on a neutral space station between human and Zephyrian territory. Jake felt nervous as their ship docked. So much depended on these negotiations. The Zephyrian delegation was impressive. 12 warriors in gleaming crystal armor, their blue lights dim with formal protocol. At their head was someone Vex recognized. Immediately. Stormcaller Zeph, Vex whispered to Jake. My former teacher, before the war. The old Zephyrian looked at Vex with unreadable blue lights. Jake couldn't tell if the expression was anger, disappointment, or something else. The first days of talks went badly. Neither side trusted the other. Too many years of war had built walls of hatred that were hard to break down, but slowly, Vex began to make a difference. It translated not just words, but cultural meanings. When human negotiators thought the Zephyrians were being threatening, Vex explained they were actually showing respect. When Zephyrian delegates seemed insulted, Vex helped humans understand what they had said wrong. The breakthrough came when Stormcaller Zeph spoke privately with Vex. The old teacher had come not to punish its former student, but to understand what Vex had learned among humans. You have changed, Zeph said in the musical Zephyrian language. You are no longer just a warrior. I remember what I was before the war, Vex replied. A keeper of young voices, a protector, not a destroyer. And the humans taught you this? The humans reminded me, by showing mercy when they could have shown hatred. Jake watched from across the room as the two aliens talked. He couldn't understand their words, but he could see emotion in their glowing patterns. Sadness for the war, hope for the future. That night, Zeph asked to meet with the human delegation. The old alien spoke slowly in careful human words. Vex has shown us that there is another way. We do not have to be enemies. Our young ones deserve better than endless war. The negotiations moved quickly after that. Not everything was solved overnight. There were still disputes over territory, resources, and reparations, but the foundation was laid for lasting peace. The final ceremony took place in the station's main hall. Representatives from both species signed the peace accords. Vex stood between the human and Zephyrian delegations, no longer belonging fully to either side, but serving as a bridge between both. Jake felt proud as he watched his friend. The alien warrior who had once cried for mercy in a dark cave had become an ambassador for peace. After the ceremony, Jake found Vex in the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. How do you feel? Jake asked. Peaceful, Vex said. For the first time in many years. Peaceful. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching ships from both species departing to carry news of peace to their respective worlds. What will you do now? Jake asked. Vex's lights pulsed thoughtfully. There is a school being built on the border worlds, a place where human and Zephyrian children can learn together. They have asked me to teach there. Jake smiled. It was perfect. Vex would return to what it had always been meant to be. A teacher, a protector of the young, a keeper of voices that would sing of peace instead of war. Will you visit? Vex asked. Try to keep us away, Jake said. They watched the stars together, two soldiers who had found something more important than war. In the garden back on Terra Station, plants that Vex had tended were growing strong and green. Soon they would bear fruit that children from both species could share. The galaxy was vast and full of different kinds of people. But as Jake stood beside his friend, he knew that differences didn't have to mean hatred. Sometimes they could mean understanding. Sometimes they could mean hope. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, a new generation would grow up knowing that former enemies could become family, that mercy was stronger than hatred, that the choice to trust could change everything. Vex began to sing in its harmonic voice, a song of peace that echoed through the observation deck and out into space. Jake listened and smiled. The war was over. The future was just beginning. The communication building was worse than Jake had hoped. Half the roof was gone, and most of the equipment was destroyed. But Vex found some intact systems in the basement level. Lisa was getting weaker. Her wounds were infected, and she needed real medical care soon. Jake watched her struggle to stay conscious while Vex worked on the communication equipment. "How long do we have?" Jake asked Lisa quietly. "Maybe hours, maybe less." Her voice was barely a whisper. Vex heard them talking and looked over. The aliens. Blue lights dimmed when it saw how bad Lisa looked. It made worried musical sounds and touched Lisa's forehead gently, the same way it had touched Ben Carter. Jake felt helpless. He was a soldier, not a doctor. He couldn't save Lisa with weapons or tactics. Vex suddenly made excited sounds. It had gotten one of the communication systems working. Static filled the air, then voices speaking in human languages. "This is Terran. Rescue ship Phoenix calling any survivors in the New Haven area. Please respond." Jake grabbed the microphone. "Phoenix, this is Captain Jake Morrison. I have wounded personnel requiring immediate medical evacuation." "Morrison? You were reported killed in action. What's your location?" Jake gave their coordinates. The rescue ship was only 20 minutes away. Help was coming, but as Jake finished, "The transmission." Vex made alarmed sounds. It was pointing to its armor display. Red dots were moving fast toward their building. The search teams had found them. "How many?" Jake asked. Vex held up all 4 hands twice. 8 warriors. Too many to fight." "Can we run?" Jake asked. Vex looked at Lisa, then shook its head. She couldn't run. She could barely walk. Jake understood the situation. The rescue ship would arrive in 20 minutes. The Zephyrian warriors would be here in 5, and Lisa couldn't be moved safely. Vex made a decision. It stood up and moved toward the building's entrance. It was going to face the warriors alone and try to hold them off. "Wait," Jake said. "You can't fight 8 of them." Vex turned back to Jake. Its blue lights pulsed in a pattern Jake had learned meant sadness. Vex made soft sounds while pointing. At Jake and Lisa, then at itself. Lisa translated weakly. "It's saying goodbye. It knows it won't survive, but maybe it can buy us time." Jake felt something twist in his chest. This alien warrior was willing to die to protect them. To protect enemies it had every reason to hate. But there was something else in Vex's posture that worried Jake. The alien wasn't just preparing to fight and die. It was preparing to give up. Through Lisa's translations over the past day, Jake had learned about Zephyrian culture. Warriors who showed mercy or helped enemies were considered dishonored. Their own people would kill them as traitors. Vex had already broken too many rules. It had spared human lives, accepted help from enemies, and shared military intelligence. Even if it survived the coming fight, its own people would execute it. Jake realized what Vex was really asking. Not just to fight the warriors outside, but to end its suffering before they could capture it and make it face a dishonored death. No, Jake said firmly. We don't abandon each other. We said we'd help each other escape. That's what we're going to do. Vex made questioning sounds. How could they possibly escape 8 elite warriors? Jake was thinking fast. The basement had multiple exits. If they could create a distraction, maybe 2 of them could get away while the third held the enemy's attention. But which 2? Lisa was. Too hurt to move fast. Vex was still wounded and would be killed by its own people anyway. That left Jake as the one to stay behind and fight. Here's the plan, Jake said. Vex, you carry Lisa through the back exit. I'll hold them off here until the rescue ship arrives. Both of his companions made negative sounds. They understood the plan meant Jake would die. It's the only way, Jake said. Lisa needs medical help. Vex, your people think you're dead already. You can start over with us. Vex shook its head vigorously. It pointed at Jake, then at itself, making protecting gestures. Lisa spoke up weakly. It won't leave you. It's saying you're under its protection now. Jake was frustrated. This isn't about honor or protection. This is about math. One of us stays, 2 of us live. Vex made a longer series of sounds. Lisa listened carefully, then translated. It's saying that in its culture, the keeper of young voices never abandons those in their care, even if it means death. I'm not young, Jake said, and I'm not yours. To protect? Vex touched Jake's face gently with one hand. The gesture was tender, almost parental. It made sounds that Lisa translated as, "You are young in mercy, young in seeing beyond hatred. That makes you precious." Jake felt tears he didn't expect. This alien warrior saw something in him that he didn't see in himself. The sound of approaching aircraft filled the air outside. 2 different types, the human rescue ship and Zephyrian attack craft arriving at the same time. New plan, Jake said quickly. We fake your death. Vex looked confused. Jake was thinking out loud. Your people think mercy is dishonor. But what if you were captured and brainwashed by humans? What if you were forced to help us? Lisa's eyes lit up despite her pain. Prisoner of war, not a traitor. Jake started working. He used his rifle to put burn marks on Vex's armor, made it look like battle damage. Then he found restraint cables in the communication equipment. Put these on, Jake told Vex. When your people arrive, you're our prisoner. We captured you and forced you to guide us. Vex understood. This would let it return to its people without being executed as a traitor. It could claim it was just following orders to stay alive. But Vex hesitated. If it went back to being a warrior, it would have to kill humans again. It might have to kill Jake someday. It's better than death, Jake said. Maybe you can find ways to protect people on your side, too. Young Zephyrians who need a keeper of young voices. Vex's lights brightened. It made hopeful sounds. Maybe it could go back and teach mercy instead of hatred. The first explosion shook the building. Zephyrian warriors were blasting their way in. Jake quickly put the restraint cables on Vex and activated them. The alien was now officially his prisoner. Phoenix, this is Morrison, Jake called into the radio. We have 1 wounded human and 1 Zephyrian prisoner for extraction. Copy that, Morrison? Coming in hot. The rescue ship's weapons lit up the sky as it engaged the Zephyrian aircraft. Inside the building, warrior voices echoed as the search team entered. Jake helped Lisa stand. She was barely conscious, but she was alive. Vex walked beside them with its hands bound, playing the role of captured enemy. But its blue lights pulsed in the pattern Jake had learned meant gratitude. The bow. Human rescue team burst through the basement door just as Zephyrian warriors came down from upstairs. For a moment, everyone had weapons pointed at everyone else. "Stand down," Jake called to his rescuers. "I have wounded personnel and a prisoner." The rescue team saw Lisa's condition and immediately moved to help her. They looked suspicious at Vex, but accepted Jake's explanation that it was a captured enemy. As they carried Lisa toward the rescue ship, Jake walked beside Vex. The alien made quiet sounds that only Jake could hear. Dawn came too soon. Jake Morrison woke to the sound of heavy footsteps echoing through the tunnel system. Zephyrian search teams were close now. Very close. He looked at his sleeping companions. Lisa Wong was still weak from her injuries, but her color was better. The alien warrior Vex was awake, its blue lights dim as it listened to the approaching sounds. Vex made a quiet musical note and pointed deeper into the tunnels. It was telling them they needed to move. Now, Jake gently woke Lisa. She opened her eyes and immediately understood the danger. They could all hear the footsteps getting louder. "How many?" Lisa whispered. Vex held up 3 of its 4 hands. Then it made a gesture Jake didn't understand. Lisa watched carefully and tried to copy the gesture. "I think it's saying they're armed with heavy weapons," Lisa said quietly. Jake nodded. His rifle wouldn't be much good against Zephyrian battle armor. They needed to run, not fight. Vex stood up slowly. Its wounds were healing, but it still moved carefully. It pointed down a narrow tunnel that sloped downward into darkness. "That way leads to the deep mines," Jake said. "Miles of tunnels down. There." "Easy to get lost." Vex made encouraging sounds. It seemed to know something about these tunnels that Jake didn't. They gathered their few supplies and started moving. Lisa leaned on Jake for support. Vex moved behind them, its 4 arms carrying equipment and watching for pursuit. The tunnel system was like a maze. Passages branched off in every direction. Some led to dead ends. Others connected to larger chambers, filled with old mining equipment. After an hour of walking, they stopped to rest in a large cavern. Ancient machines stood like sleeping giants in the darkness. Jake recognized some of them. Ore processors, conveyor systems. This had been a major mining operation years ago. Vex moved to one of the machines and made excited sounds. It touched. Panels on the machine's control surface. Lights came on. "The power still works down here," Lisa said with surprise. Vex was doing something with the machine's controls. It seemed to understand the human technology better than Jake expected. After a few minutes, a large display screen lit up. The screen showed a map of the tunnel system. Hundreds of passages connected like the veins of a leaf. Vex pointed to a spot on the map, then to where they were standing. It was showing them their location. "It can read our maps," Jake said. Vex touched different parts of the map. Red dots appeared in some tunnels. Jake realized what he was seeing. The red dots were search teams. Vex was tracking the enemy forces. "How does it know where they are?" Lisa asked. Vex tapped its chest armor. The crystal surface pulsed with soft light. Then it pointed to the red dots on the map. Its armor was somehow connected to the Zephyrian communication system. "It's listening to their radio chatter," Jake said. "It knows where every search team is." This changed everything. With real-time intelligence on enemy positions, they could avoid the search teams completely, maybe even make it to a safe extraction. Point Vex studied the map for several minutes. Then it traced a route with one finger. The path led through less used tunnels toward the surface, but far from where the main search was happening. "You want to help us escape?" Jake asked. Vex looked at him with those blue lights. It made a sound that Lisa had learned meant yes. Then it pointed to itself and made a different sound. "It's asking if we'll help it escape, too," Lisa translated. Jake thought about that. Taking an enemy alien with them would complicate any rescue. Human forces would want to interrogate Vex, maybe imprison it, maybe worse. But this alien had saved their lives twice now, first in the medical building, then by sharing intelligence about the search teams. "Yes," Jake said. "We help each other." Vex's lights brightened. It made happy musical sounds that echoed in the cavern. They spent the next few hours moving through the tunnel system. Vex guided them away from the search teams with skill that amazed Jake. The alien warrior knew exactly where to go and when to wait. During one rest stop, Lisa tried to learn more Zephyrian words. Vex was a patient teacher. It used simple gestures and drawings to explain complex ideas. Jake learned that Vex's armor markings meant something specific in Zephyrian culture. The blue lights identified Vex as what Lisa translated as Keeper of Young Voices. It meant Vex had been responsible for teaching and protecting children before the war. "So you were like a school teacher?" Jake asked. Vex made sounds that meant something like, "Yes, but more." Lisa worked to understand the concept. "More like a parent figure," she said finally. It took care of young warriors in training, taught them not just fighting, but philosophy, history, art. Vex drew more pictures in the cave dust. Images of young Zephyrians learning to use tools, to make music, to work together. Then darker images of those same young ones being taken away to become soldiers. "The war changed everything," Lisa said quietly. Vex nodded sadly. It drew a picture of itself in battle, then crossed it out. It didn't want to be a warrior. It wanted to go back to teaching and protecting. Jake felt a deep sympathy for the alien. War had forced it to become something it never wanted to be. Just like war had changed Jake from a colonial security officer into a hardened soldier. As they moved deeper through the tunnels, Jake noticed something else. Vex was protecting them in small ways. It always walked where the danger was greatest. It tested unstable passages before letting Jake and Lisa enter. When they encountered automated defense systems, Vex disarmed them with gentle touches to the right control panels. "How do you know so much about human technology?" Jake asked during one rest. Vex pointed to its head, then to Jake and Lisa. It had been watching humans, learning from them, not just as an enemy studying targets, but as someone who was curious about another culture. Lisa found this fascinating. Most Zephyrian warriors just destroy human technology. They don't study it or learn from it. Vex made sounds that Lisa translated as wasteful and wrong. It believed in learning from others, not just conquering them. They came to a junction where 5 tunnels met. Vex checked its connection to the map system. Bad news. Search teams were moving to cut off their escape route. Vex made worried sounds and pointed to the map display. Red dots were converging on the surface exit they had been heading for. "We're trapped," Jake said, but Vex wasn't giving up. It studied the map more carefully, tracing different routes with its fingers. Then it found something. A maintenance shaft that led to an abandoned section of the colony. The shaft was narrow and steep. It would be a difficult climb for Lisa in her condition. But Vex had a solution. It rearranged its equipment to make a kind of harness. Then it showed Jake how to secure Lisa so that Vex could carry her during the climb. "You want to carry her?" Jake asked. Vex nodded. It made protective sounds and gestured toward Lisa like she was one of the young ones it used to teach. The climb took 2 hours. Vex moved slowly and carefully, making sure Lisa was secure. Jake climbed beside them, ready to help if anything went wrong. When they reached the top, they were in the ruins of New Haven's industrial district. Burned buildings and twisted metal everywhere, but also lots of places to hide. Jake checked his long-range communicator. Still nothing from friendly forces. They were on their own. Vex pointed to an intact building about a mile away. It made questioning sounds at Jake. "You think we should go there?" Jake asked. Vex nodded and drew a quick picture in the ash. A building with communication equipment. It wanted them to find a way to call for help. As they moved through the ruins, Jake realized something important. They weren't just 3 survivors anymore. They were a team. Vex wasn't helping them because it was trapped with them. It was helping because it chose to. And Jake was helping Vex for the same reason. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Because this alien warrior had shown him that enemies could become friends if they just tried to understand each other. The building Vex had spotted was an old communications relay station. If they could get it working, maybe they could send a distress signal. But first, they had to get there without being caught by the search teams that were still hunting for them. Jake looked at his 2 companions. One human, one alien. Both hurt, both tired, both depending on him to keep them safe. He could do this. They could do this. Together. 3 hours after the shuttles left New Haven, Jake Morrison found himself back on the ground. The rescue mission had gone wrong when their shuttle took plasma fire during the final evacuation sweep. The pilot managed to crash land near the colony, ruins, but the ship was done for. Jake crawled out of the wreckage and helped Lisa Wong to her feet. She was hurt bad. Plasma burns covered her right side, and she could barely stand. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead. "Can you walk?" Jake asked. Lisa nodded, but he could see the pain in her eyes. "Where are we?" Jake looked around. They were about a mile from New Haven in a rocky area with lots of caves and old mining tunnels. The perfect place to hide if you were being hunted. "We need to find cover," Jake said. "More Zephyrian ships will come to check the crash site." They made it to a tunnel entrance just as alien aircraft began circling overhead. The tunnel was dark and cool. It led down into the old mining system that ran under the whole colony area. Jake helped Lisa sit down on some rocks. He used his medical kit to clean her wounds. The plasma burns were bad but not deadly. She would live if they could get her real. "Medical help soon." "What's the plan, sir?" Lisa asked. Her voice was weak but steady. "We wait. Maybe another rescue ship will come. Maybe we can signal someone." Jake didn't sound very sure about it. They sat in the dark tunnel for hours. Jake used his scanner to check for movement above ground. Lots of Zephyrian warriors were moving around, up there. Searching for them, probably. Lisa fell asleep against the tunnel wall. Jake let her rest while he explored deeper into the tunnels. These old mining caves went on for miles. There were lots of places to hide, but also lots of ways to get lost. He found an old storage room full of mining equipment, medical supplies too, which was good news for Lisa. He was loading bandages into his pack when he heard something that made his blood freeze. That musical wind sound. The same sound the Zephyrian warrior had made in the medical building. Jake grabbed his rifle and moved toward the sound. It was coming from a large cave room deeper in the tunnel system. He turned off his flashlight and crept forward in the dark. The cave room had a hole in the ceiling that let in some starlight. In that dim light, Jake saw something that shocked him. It was the same Zephyrian warrior from the medical building. Jake was sure of it. The crystal armor had the same patterns, the same 4 arms, the same smooth face with blue lights underneath. But now the warrior was trapped under a pile of fallen rocks. One of its arms was bent wrong. Dark fluid that might be blood leaked from cracks in its crystal armor. The blue lights under its face were dim and flickering. The warrior was making that musical sound over and over. But now Jake understood what it was. The alien was crying. It was in pain, and it was afraid, and it was crying for help. Jake stood in the tunnel entrance and stared. Part of him said to just leave. This was the enemy. Let it die alone in the dark. But another part of him remembered how gently this same warrior had touched Ben Carter's forehead. The warrior saw him then. Those dim blue lights focused on Jake's face. The crying sound stopped. The alien just looked at him and waited to die. Jake made a choice that surprised even himself. He walked into the cave room and knelt beside the trapped warrior. Up close, the alien was even bigger than he had thought. Its crystal armor was beautiful, but also cracked and broken. The warrior's breathing was shallow and fast. It was dying. Jake started moving rocks. The warrior watched him with those blue lights but didn't make any sound. Maybe it was too surprised to react. It took Jake 20 minutes to free the warrior's trapped arm. The limb was badly hurt but not cut off. The warrior flexed its fingers, slowly, like it couldn't believe it was free. Jake sat back on his heels and looked at the alien. "Why?" he asked out loud. "Why did you help us back there?" The warrior tilted its head. It made a soft sound that wasn't musical this time. More like someone trying to talk but not knowing the words. Jake pointed to himself. "Human." Then he pointed to the warrior. "Zephyrian." The warrior understood. It touched its own chest with one hand. The sound it made might have been its name, but Jake couldn't repeat it. The alien tried to sit up but couldn't. Too hurt. Jake found himself helping it lean against the cave wall. The warrior's armor was warm to the touch and hummed. With some kind of energy, Jake went back to get Lisa and bring her to the cave room. She woke up when he touched her shoulder. "We need to move deeper," Jake said. "I found something." Lisa was too hurt to ask many questions. She let Jake help her walk to the cave room. When she saw the Zephyrian warrior, she stopped dead. "Sir, what the hell is that doing here? It's hurt, trapped like we are." Lisa stared at him. "It's the enemy, sir." "Yeah, but it helped us before, and now it needs help." Lisa looked at the warrior for a long time. Her training said to kill it or leave it to die. But she had seen what happened in the medical building, too. "It's going to die anyway," she said finally. "Maybe, but maybe not." Jake started treating the warrior's wounds with supplies from his medical kit. The alien's anatomy was different from human, but not completely alien. It had something like blood that was purple instead of red. It had organs that seemed to work, like hearts and lungs. The warrior let Jake work on its injuries. Sometimes it made soft sounds when something hurt, but it never tried to stop him or fight back. Lisa sat nearby and watched. She had studied alien languages before the war. She started listening to the sounds the warrior made and trying to understand patterns. "I think it's trying to communicate," she said after a while. The warrior heard her and turned its head. It made a series of different sounds while pointing at different things. Cave wall, Jake, Lisa, itself. "It's teaching us words," Lisa said with surprise. Jake finished bandaging the worst wounds and sat back. "Can you understand any of it?" Lisa tried making some of the sounds back at the warrior. The alien's blue lights got brighter. It made encouraging noises and repeated the words more slowly. Over the next few hours, they learned basic things. The Taisa warrior's name sounded like Vex when Jake tried to say it. It could understand some of what they said, even if it couldn't speak human words. Vex showed them pictures scratched into the cave wall, stick figures that looked like the story of its life. A small Vex with other small aliens, bigger aliens that might be parents. Then soldiers taking Vex away from the family group. Conscripted, Lisa said. They took it from its family and made it into a soldier. More pictures showed Vex learning to fight, learning to use weapons, learning to kill. But in one picture, small figures still hid behind Vex like it was protecting them. It was a teacher, Jake said, or a guardian, before they made it into a warrior. Vex pointed to the picture of small figures, then to Jake and Lisa. Then it pointed to itself and shook its head sadly. It was trying to say it didn't want to hurt them, that it was supposed to protect small things, not kill them. Jake understood now why Vex had been gentle with Ben Carter. The warrior's true nature was to protect children, not harm them. As night turned to day outside, the three of them huddled in the cave. Jake kept watch while Lisa and Vex rested. The alien's wounds were healing faster than human wounds would. Its armor seemed to help somehow, but they all knew their situation was bad. Jake's scanner showed Zephyrian search teams getting closer. They had maybe hours before they were found. Jake looked at his two companions, a hurt human soldier and a wounded alien warrior. Yesterday they would have killed each other on sight. Now they were hiding together in a cave, sharing food and water. He thought about the war raging across the galaxy. Humans and Zephyrians had been fighting for 10 years. Millions dead on both sides. And for what? Because they were different? Because they couldn't understand each other? Vex made a soft sound and pointed outside. It could hear something Jake couldn't. Search teams getting closer. Jake checked his rifle. Only half a clip left. Not enough for a real fight. But maybe they wouldn't have to fight. Vex was here with them now. Maybe there was another way. Jake looked at the alien warrior who had cried for mercy in the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, 3 soldiers who should have been enemies were learning to trust each other. Maybe that was how wars really ended. Not with big battles or peace treaties, but with individual choices to show mercy instead of hatred. The red dust of Kepler 442c swirled around Captain Jake Morrison's boots as he ran through the burning streets of New Haven Colony. Smoke filled the air and made his eyes water. Behind him, the sounds of plasma fire and screaming filled the night. The Zephyrian warriors had broken through the last defense line an hour ago. Jake pressed his hand against his earpiece and shouted over the noise. All units fall back to landing zone Alpha. Repeat, all units to Alpha now. His voice was rough from breathing smoke for 3 weeks straight. The siege had been hell on Earth, or hell on this little mining planet that humans called home for the past 50 years. He turned the corner and saw the evacuation shuttles. Their engines glowed blue in the darkness. People were running toward them, carrying bags and children. Some carried wounded friends on their backs. Jake counted the shuttles quickly. 7 ships total, maybe enough for everyone still alive. Sergeant Lisa Wong ran up to him. Her uniform was torn and dirty. Blood covered her left arm, but she still held her rifle ready. "Sir, we got most of the civilians loaded, but the medical bay team hasn't reported in yet." Jake looked toward the medical building. Half of it was on fire. The other half looked empty and dark. "How many people?" "Maybe 12 wounded, plus the medical staff. Ben Carter is in there too. Kid got hurt real bad yesterday." Jake knew Ben. The boy was only 16. His father died in the first attack 3 weeks ago. His mother died last week. Ben was all alone now except for the people of New Haven who looked after him. The ground shook as another explosion hit somewhere close. Jake saw Lisa stumble but catch herself. More Zephyrian warriors would be here soon. The big alien soldiers moved fast and hit hard. Their crystal armor made them look like walking diamonds. Their weapons could cut through steel like butter. "Sir, we need to go," Lisa said. She pointed at the shuttles. "Those ships won't wait much longer." Jake looked at the medical building again. Then he looked at the shuttles full of scared people. Then he made his choice. "Get to Shuttle 4, start the engines. I'm going for the medical team." "Sir, that's crazy. We can't—" "That's an order, Sergeant." Lisa stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I'm coming with you." "No, you need to—" "With respect, sir, shut up. I'm coming with you." Jake almost smiled. Lisa had been with him for 2 years. She never backed down from a fight. "Fine, but we move fast." They ran toward the medical building. The front door was blocked by fallen concrete. Jake found a side window that was broken. He climbed through first, then helped Lisa. Inside, the building was dark and quiet. Too quiet. Jake turned on his flashlight. The beam showed empty beds and scattered medical supplies. "Hello?" he called softly. "Anyone here?" A weak voice answered from the back room. "Here. We're here." They found them in the emergency surgery room. Dr. Kate Phillips was there with 3 nurses. 4 wounded colonists lay on beds. Ben Carter was one of them. His leg was wrapped in bloody bandages. His face was white with pain, but his eyes were alert. "Captain Morrison," Dr. Phillips said. "Thank God. We couldn't move them. Ben's leg is broken bad. Mr. Ross has internal bleeding. Mrs. Davis has a head injury." Jake counted quickly. 8 people total, all hurt. It would be slow going to get them to the shuttles. "Can they be moved?" Jake asked. "They have to be. But it won't be easy." A new sound filled the air. Heavy footsteps in the hallway. Jake held up his hand for silence. The footsteps were too heavy to be human, too regular. Like a machine walking, Jake motioned for everyone to stay quiet. He moved to the doorway and looked out into the hall. His blood went cold. A Zephyrian warrior stood in the main room. The alien was huge, over 7 feet tall. Its crystal armor caught the light from Jake's flashlight and threw rainbow colors on the walls. The warrior held a plasma rifle that looked small in its 4-armed grip. The alien's head turned toward the surgery room. It had no face that Jake could see, just a smooth crystal surface with blue lights underneath. But somehow Jake knew it was looking right at him. Jake raised his rifle. His finger found the trigger. The alien warrior stepped forward. Its foot made no sound on the floor despite its size. Then something strange happened. Ben Carter made a small noise of pain, just a quiet whimper. But the Zephyrian warrior heard it and stopped walking. Its head tilted to one side like it was listening. The alien stepped into the doorway. Jake held his breath. This was it. Time to fight and die. But the warrior didn't raise its weapon. Instead, it looked at Ben lying on the bed. The boy was unconscious now, his face twisted with pain. The warrior stared at him for a long moment. Then the alien did something that made no sense at all. It reached out with one of its 4 hands and gently touched Ben's forehead. The touch was soft, almost like a parent checking a child for fever. The warrior's blue lights pulsed slowly under its crystal skin. It made a sound that was like music mixed with wind. The sound was sad somehow. Jake couldn't understand what he was seeing. Zephyrian warriors were killers. They destroyed everything in their path. They showed no mercy to anyone, but this one was being gentle with a hurt human child. The warrior looked at Jake then. Those blue lights under its face seemed to see right through him. Jake still held his rifle, but somehow he couldn't pull the trigger. The alien made that musical wind sound again. Then it stepped back and pointed down the hall with one of its hands. It was telling them which way to go, which way was safe. More heavy footsteps echoed from other parts of the building. More warriors coming. The first warrior heard them too. It looked back at Ben one more time, then at Jake. Then it turned and walked away in the opposite direction from where it had pointed. Jake stared after it. What just happened made no sense at all. "Sir," Lisa whispered, "we need to move. Now." Jake shook his head to clear it. "Right. Everyone who can walk, help carry someone who can't. We're going out the back." They moved as fast as they could. Dr. Phillips and 2 nurses carried Ben on a stretcher. Jake and Lisa helped Mr. Ross walk. The 3rd nurse helped Mrs. Davis. They made it to the back door. Jake looked out carefully. The alley was empty. He could see the landing zone in the distance. The shuttles were still there, but their engines were getting louder. They were getting ready to leave. "Run," Jake said. They ran through the dark streets. Jake kept looking over his shoulder. He expected to see Zephyrian warriors chasing them, but the streets stayed empty. They reached the shuttles just as the last one was about to lift off. Jake pounded on the side door. It opened, and human hands pulled them inside. The shuttle lifted into the night sky. Through the window, Jake could see New Haven burning below them. Somewhere down there was a Zephyrian warrior who had shown mercy to a human child. Jake couldn't stop thinking about those sad blue lights and that musical sound. He had seen something tonight that changed everything he thought he knew about the enemy. The shuttle flew toward the stars and safety. But Jake Morrison knew this war was far from over. And now he had questions he never had before.